So good afternoon, everyone, all the persons present here in this webinar by the Aggregates Europe and Rotate project on the biodiversity indicators, the questionnaire developed in collaboration by Rotate project and in collaboration with Aggregates Europe, Fundación Tormes, Anefa, and also University of Liège. We count, I will present myself first. I'm Miquel París, Public Affairs Officer for Aggregates Europe-UEPG, hosting in this case this biodiversity indicators project through the Environment Committee of Aggregates Europe. And afterwards, we have Beatriz Gordo from Rotate Project and also from Anefa, the Spanish Aggregates Association, and also Samuel Buchon from the University of Liège. Shall first just some comments on the webinar. You have a Q&A panel for those attending, in case you would like to leave any question or comment regarding the presentation we were gonna share now. You can do it during the presentation and also at the end of the presentation if you have any general comments or general remarks. If it's specifically addressed during a specific slide or part of the presentation, we may cut the presentation, the discussion just for a moment. But if not, and if everyone agrees from my colleagues, we will address mainly all the general questions at the end of the presentation, just for the sake of continuity and clarity during the presentation. I will now proceed to share the slides if you can everyone see. So welcome again to the Biodiversity Indicators Reporting and Information session for those members, for all the members of Aggregates Europe UEPG. And I shall present again the presentation made by myself, Miquel París, Samuel Buchon, and Beatriz Gordo. And then we can proceed, please, Beatriz, to explain why would you develop biodiversity indicators?
Okay, thank you, Miguel, and welcome to everyone to this webinar. So this is the second webinar that we carry on. So the first one we did in Spanish just before Christmas time, and I hope that it's going to be really interesting for you in this English session. So what is the situation and why we decided to develop biodiversity indicators? So basically, in reality, queries promote reviews for biodiversity, and they construct permanent and non-permanent and diversified habitat. But when we try to deep into the different queries and we knock the door to try to extract the different data on biodiversity in the different queries, we found it that queries, they develop in different management biodiversity query plan. They're working on restoration plan focus on biodiversity, and for this reason promote biodiversity. But the situation is that we don't have enough data, and especially we couldn't find what is the different situation on biodiversity and, by the way, on environmental data for the different queries. So for this situation and the lack of information that we found it in the European scale, we decided to develop biodiversity indicators. So these indicators, we working to develop in two different ways, but we working together on the biodiversity indicators working group on UEPG, and also for the European project that we developing with Anefa, that is coordinating the Rotate project. So the different action that we working to extract the different data for biodiversity is we developing action on quality and quantitative data, and also it's really important for us to try to replicability the result. It's not a point to develop certain indicators, for example, just in German. if we cannot compare with the situation that we have, for example, in Spain, in France, on different European countries. So you can go for the next one, please. For the Rotate project. So basically, what is Rotate project? So this European funded project is going to provide the different environmental solution that can contribute, and is going to contribute the facility to generate the synergy between the different industrial sector, in this case relating to mining and quarry site. This European project is coordinated by Anefa team, and we're working in this project for a long 4 years project. So at the moment we are on the 2025, so it's going to be just 1 year and a couple of months ahead that is going to end. So why we decided to propose this project is because we found that the demand on critical and non critical raw material is increasing, but in Europe we need to import for the third countries. So to try to get a solution is focused more into ensure the access to a secure, diverse and upfront and sustainability reply. The different goals is going to be focused, as I mentioned before, on environmental solution, on extraction and processing, the different improvement to focus on the zero emission. One of the goals also for Europe, promote the circularity, industrial symbiosis and waste valorization, and reduce the environmental footprint, and also to get the social acceptance and to get the positive impact for these quarries that we're working on the project. At the moment we're working and we focus our work in 5 different pilot sites, but the main thing is to try to replicability this result for the different European pilot sites. So you can go for the next one, please, and I give you the floor for you, Miguel. Thank you.
Yes, just as a support to what Beatriz said, rightly said, we realize from the sector in general terms, there's a lack of available data in environmental terms, which that means that we are losing maybe an opportunity to proactively act on a higher level. What do I mean by that? In this case, from the side of Aggregates Europe-UEPG, we are currently working in specific legislation. For example, I'm pretty sure that the attendees will know of the nature restoration regulation, which in this case directly affects, for example, the aggregate sector, as we try to take a restorative measures, which the aggregates and the non-energetic extractive sites are already undertaking while doing their operations. But it is always more helpful to support those arguments at the European level, in this case from Aggregates Europe, through practical data and practical examples and best practices by our members. So that's why we are trying to support our own argumentation by the sector with specific data and specific quantification of which are those quantifiable biodiversity indicators. So that's from the side of Aggregates Europe. We initiated 1.5 years ago a working group on biodiversity indicators. In this case, if I am not correct, she is present and chaired. This working group was chaired by Petra Gradisnik from the Austrian Association. And this working group mainly worked and drafted the questionnaire that you're about to see now, but you already had distributed previously through to the links and the various languages that is available, this questionnaire. And from here, from this working group, we go through the different levels, the different layers of that the Aggregates Europe-UEPG has. First, through the Environment Committee, in order to shape and approve the text and the quality of the text, depending in this case, according to the feedback provided by the same members. And finally, we had the final approval from this biodiversity indicators questionnaire on the first level, the second and third level to come. And then I will just leave the floor for Samuel about the objective of these indicators.
Okay, thank you, Miquel. now we going for, let's say, the theory behind why developing indicators and how to do that. I think the why has been explained quite extensively, but the first part of developing indicators is actually defining what is a good indicator. So you have three main things to look at when defining what a good indicator is. Is first, it has to be straightforward, meaning that it's easily understood by both the people that will interpret it as a variable and the people that will do the measurement, so that there is no different ways to interpret what is in, what is out. It is straightforward. There is no complex mechanics involved, like a black box models, for example. It has to be sensitive to change, meaning that if there is a variation in, let's say, a species population, then the indicator shows that there is a variation, be it positive or negative. It has to show that change, and it it's a bit obvious to say, but it's a very important characteristic. Not all indicators do have the same sensitivity to change, and they have to be predictable in the way they change. So if you expect, for example, that an indicator will double its value when the population double, then it has to do that for every environment or any condition it is applying, any queries, any countries, any environment. So these are the three characteristics that make a good indicator. They have to be easily understood. They have to show change, and they have to show that the way they show the change shouldn't be linked to any environment or any specific condition. They have to be replicable, which is the second point. Replicability is very important because, as has been underlined previously, there is a lack of at least centralization and standardization of the data available about biodiversity in the queries. So if we go for biodiversity indicators, they have to be applied in different sites at different years. And by doing it at different years in the same site, they have to be to have the same answer. So you can compare one site's evolution to the years, and they have to be replicable in different sites so that you can compare sites from Germany with sites from Spain, for example, if the company is big enough to have several sites across Europe. And they have to be also replicable in different landscapes. So if you have an aggregate which is in a Mediterranean area and an aggregate company which is in, let's say, temperate forest, then they do have to be applied. They do have to be applied in the same way in both environments, regardless of the biological setting. So this is very important as we talk about the European way to see things. The upscaling is very important so that you guys from different country can use that set of indicator with trusting that it will show the change that you expect. And of course, we align all of these with the European legislation and trend, which has been about the 2030 biodiversity strategy and the action plan that have been put in place, the Birds and Habitat Directive, Natura 2000 network for protecting habitats and some species, and of course the nature restoration law, which will ask from you to restore nature and to restore nature in a good way, meaning it's about biodiversity, it's about understanding. It's not always about forest. It can be about grassland. It can be about some pioneering habitats. Then there is a better way to restore nature. And those indicators will help you guide through better ways to restore nature than just planting something after exploitation, for example. Next slide, please. So the indicators themselves, they are divided into three tiers. We call them level 1, level 2, level 3. They go increasing by complexity. The level 1 is the one we're talking today about and we're presenting. It's a pre-assessment of biodiversity indicators, meaning we'll get into it just after. They are basic indicators and basic information with very limited to no environmental expertise required. Most of the information is already available in plans, in restoration plans, in exploitation data, and so on. And the level 1 is basically like an inventory of what the site have as environmental information on biodiversity. The level 2 is assessment of biodiversity indicators. It is a structural level, so it is addressing the structure of biodiversity. It requires some external expertise, not necessarily on biodiversity, can be on ecosystems, can be on basic, just what kind of surfaces are restored or not, and by what they have been restored, if it's grassland, if it's forest, something like that. They are based on environmental evaluations. The level 3 address the functions of the ecosystem. So that is not only the characteristics of the surface, but also how well these ecosystems are functioning, how healthy they are. So how many species are in these ecosystems, how linked species are present or absent, are they migrating in and out, are they developing, are they decreasing. So this is the most complex level. There is experience required from the environmental fields and environmental science, but these are the most important ones also to measure biodiversity through the years and through space. So these are the ones which basically will say at the end of, I don't know, a term of 5 years, that site has increased biodiversity by 30%, with, I don't know, 5 more red list species that are been hosting in there, and we restored how many hectares of this kind of environment, and so on and so forth. The important part here is that each level is partially built on previous one, information-wise. So if you're already lacking some information at level 1, it might get more difficult to get information at level 2, and even more at level 3. So it's very important that each level are, let's say, completed in the most comprehensive way, or at least understood in the most comprehensive way to go forward. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So what we present today is, as I said, the level 1 biodiversity indicator pre-evaluation. So it's a preliminary evaluation of what is present in the extractive industry, meaning we aim at targeting the source of information. So it's the availability of the information, the gap of information that you may have, and the requirements for biodiversity indicators as information. So it's basically saying, okay, that is what we have, that is what is needed, and then how can we address it to get information from level 1, and how can we build on this information to get to the next level. Most of the information should be already available in either the company, the parent company, or the site environmental documentation. It can be sometimes very old and outdated, and that is a very important information, because if it's available, then when has it been acquired? Has it been acquired 10 years ago, 5 years ago, last year, 6 months ago? And that will tell you about the quality of it and maybe the need of updating it, or you can work with that. But it doesn't need an acquired and advanced knowledge, and we need to get that point quite clear here. Next slide, please. So we did with that with the level 1, we did 2 things. We did a questionnaire to gather the information, and we also did a manual which accompanies the questionnaire, so that you're not completely lost with the question and what they ask and how to find information. There is a manual which is, I think, like probably 10 pages roughly. Yes. Which is helping you with the question themselves, what they mean, why do you need that information, which is quite crucial for people to understand why sometimes a question may seem a bit either very basic or obvious or not so linked to biodiversity, but it is a question that will help further down the line, either level 1 or for level 2 or level 3, that you get the information. So this guide always comes with the questionnaire. The questionnaire, as we talked about quite a lot before, it has been tested on our pilot sites in Rotate, but it also has been discussed with the UPG, and we tried to shorten it the most we could while retaining at the same time meaningful information. So I think it came down from 40-ish question to 17 now. And if you already have the information, it shouldn't take more than 15 minutes to complete. Of course, if you don't, then it may be a bit longer, but we tried our best to be as meaningful and as short as possible to get the information. So of course, when you get the questionnaire, you'll get the manual with it to help you and guide. Next slide, please.
If I may add, Samuel, apart from this, those explanatory manuals and the summary guidance of the manuals are also for the moment available in Spanish, English, German, and French, and we highly encourage all members to translate those documents into their own national languages if that makes it easier for the national companies to fill it in.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is in there. So the questionnaire itself do have several parts in the 17 question. The first part is the general data, of course, the location of the query, the contact data, so that when you fill in the form, then you know in the company who filled the form and where is the query if you have several sites. There is a general information level where we ask about if there is a cartography of the site, which can be very useful to determine surfaces and areas where the query is active, query is inactive, and in inactive queries, in inactive part of the query, there's always nature trying to recover, and it's very important that these inactive areas are actually surveyed or at least monitored, because in this part, it can be very fast, it can be over 1 year over another that nature has started already to recolonize. And partly, it is also important, and we ask about Natura 2000 network, the proximity of it. If you have in, let's say, in large exploitation, some of the restored area can be close to a Natura 2000, or they have been restored with Natura 2000 closely related species, and so on and so forth. So there could be cross, not contamination, but the fact that basically nature will come from Natura 2000 areas and try to recolonize those sites. So it helps with a potential understanding of which species you will have in your site. The third part of the questionnaire addresses the plan, the environmental management while the query is active. What are, let's say, the measures which are put in place while the query is active in the active part of the queries regarding biodiversity, the restoration plan. How do you address restoration if it's planting trees, if it's just leveling, if it's going much further in already having a comprehensive strategy for biodiversity. And finally, if you have a biodiversity management plan throughout the life cycle of the query, from opening to restoring. So those questions are addressed to that level. You may not have all of this, and it's not an issue, of course. It's just that it helps, let's say, paving the way and putting the puzzle in place for going further. And the final part of the questionnaire is about habitat and species protection. So do you have data already from past surveys or from past report about habitats and their rehabilitation? Already have biodiversity indicators that have been taken? And do you have dissemination action, meaning that do you communicate on biodiversity toward either internal purposes, like within the company, or do you communicate with the external world, let's say the neighbors, universities, local administration, so on and so forth? So this is basically how the questionnaire is articulated. So 4 different levels. Now we can go to the question themselves, I think. So is it me or it's Beatrice? No, I don't remember. I think it's me.
I think that you can continue,
Okay.
so it's all right. So I think that you explained very well before what is going to be in the different section, but if you want to explain further, it's all right.
I can go. So the first questions here regarding location and the contact data is very easy. Again, we stress it by email, but we will stress it here again. Everything in the questionnaire is confidential.
Yep.
So everything you put in the questionnaire will not leave anything. It will not leave either all questionnaire answering, and it won't be used in any other way. It won't be published. So everything you put here is confidential. So there is a location of the mining site. There is the name and surname of a contact person and the email address. In case of the question have been tailored that there is a track of who fill the questionnaire, so that after, if there needs to be an update to that, then they can either contact the person directly, or they can reuse the same person if the person is not here and say, okay, is that person that did it, so that's our environmental expert, for example. It's easier to work with. Second slide, please. So the general information about the cartography and the Natura 2000, as I said, they are very basic questions, as you see. Is yes, no, I need to check. We try to get very, very short with the answer you have to give. You have a cartography, you don't have one, or the need to check is like you don't know, or maybe the person that is doing the questionnaire doesn't know. He has to check with the environmental expert or someone else. You can put need to check. It's always updatable. And the important part here is that, is it in a digital version or is it image format? Because if it's a digital version, it's very easy to work with delimiting and calculating areas of, let's say, nature or biodiversity, or here and there. For Natura 2000, we have different kind of Natura 2000 areas which are completely protected, or special areas for conservation, and so on and so forth. So you can always say yes, no, or I need to check. It's always very short answers. And sometimes we do have sites where there is a Natura 2000 area within the concession area. So the concession area is, let's say, the broad area that belongs to the company. It's not restricted to the exploitation sites or extractive sites, because you always work on a smaller part and then you extend. And sometimes in those big areas, we do have the case where a Natura 2000 area has been defined prior the extension. Next slides, please. About management plans, again, it's very straightforward. Is do you manage nature in the concession area? So again, in the very large site, not only the extractive site, but everything surrounding it, which part of your organization. Yes, we do have a management plan. We do have a restoration plan. We do have a code of conduct. Some companies do have a code of conduct about biodiversity, and some measure already put in place. About the restoration plan, do they have rehabilitation of natural ecosystem, or do they just say we do landscaping and leveling and filling up, and then that's all? Because different legislation, different countries do have different ways of doing things. And biodiversity management plan, again, yes or no. And as I said earlier, and I put it here again, this level 1 is pointing you to the source of the data. So that's why the answer here are very short. But if you have one, you have, let's say, a rehabilitation plan, then you can already have some kind of biodiversity management information in that one, which will be the point of level 2. So that's why those questions are looking the way they are. Next slide, please. For habitat species and protection is exactly the same. So how do you have data on natural habitats already? These are either in the restoration plan or biodiversity management plan or previous surveys that have been done. If you have habitats restored, then you can, and you have a cartography, then you can easily say, okay, I have 5 hectares out of 20 which are restored, and we ask here a gross estimation. It's an estimation. It doesn't have to be perfect about how much natural potential does have the quarry, basically, addressing how many hectares are devoted to natural habitats within the sites. Exactly the same for the rest. It's very small. I can't really read it, but you can read it and ask questions about it. It's basically the same. The only thing I want to point out here is does the site engage with local community? Because it's always a point, an important point, and sometimes a point of friction, which is the social acceptance of extractive sector in general. And if you do engage with the general public, do you engage and put some biodiversity part on them or don't? Because it is quite a powerful way to engage with local community to talk about the biodiversity you have in your quarry. Sometimes it's owls which are nesting. Sometimes there is this kind of species or this kind of habitats which have been either restored or they came by themselves in the inactive part of the quarry. So when you know that, you can engage with the local community, you can engage with the, let's say, naturalist association, you can engage with some university here and there, and you can add value to the site with the biodiversity which is hosted there. So it's not always about just knowing what biodiversity is there. There is an intrinsic value in biodiversity in terms of, let's say, cultural ecosystem service that you can extract from the data you will extract later. Next slide, please.
And yes, just finally summarizing on the working timeline that we've already been undertaking on the working group for this biodiversity indicators questionnaire. We already started in 2024 in December of 2024 the launch of the first level questionnaire after going through, as I said earlier, onto the different layers, organizational layers of Aggregates Europe. And today we're having, on January, the webinar reporting and information. And the most important deadlines to be remembered in this case by Aggregates Europe members is first, the deadline for the questionnaire for its completion and submission. It is to say the 17th, as Samuel said. It is important to submit all the 17 questions in its entirety in order to have the most complete information available on the 27th of February 2025. Which in this case will allow us to gather all this information and analyze it and compile it in a way that we can present it to you, the members, in our next and upcoming Environment Committee, Aggregates Europe Environment Committee on the 20th of March 2025, in this case, on a meeting in Dublin. So in this way, we can present those results, and not only present those results, but also keep going and keep working on the development of level 2, and at the same time being able to do the same as we are doing now, which is launching again the second level questionnaire and redoing again all this timeline, this working timeline. And by the way, I shall mention that, for example, we already have some submissions by our members, being, for example, we have a specific data, being, for example, 8 answers in Spanish, 21 in English, 8 in German, which makes more or less up to the moment about 37 submissions by the different sites, which in this case we encourage again all members to continue to answering and submitting those first level questionnaires. So in this case, that's the end of the presentation. Please feel free to follow us on our social media, either on Rotate, Aggregates Europe, Anefa, Federación de Áridos, or Fundación Tormes. And then we also have some contact information, either Beatriz, myself, Samuel, or Victor Perez from Fundación Tormes, who is also a partner from the Rotate project on the questionnaire. Thank you very much, and now we will proceed to check if there's any question from the Q&A section, or if so, please feel free to write on the section if there's any kind of comment, maybe on the chat.
I think on the chat there was one.
Yes,
there is one at least.
Yes, from Ivona Arends. What in terms of confidentiality? In this case, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, but those submissions made by members will be only managed by the Rotate project, the persons here present, Beatriz, Samuel, myself, and do not leave in this case, the premises of Aggregates Europe or the Rotate project. And how long will the data be safe? In this case, maybe Beatriz or Samuel can answer just for the maintenance of this data.
Beatriz, can you go for it? Because
so
I can't actually answer that one.
Yeah, so basically just a clarification. For Rotate project, we are going to share only the information that we have for the 5 pilot site that is involved in the project. That's it. For the rest of the information that we are going to get for the UEPG working group, is going to share the information, but shared information is going to be location of the site. We never share the name of the site. For example, as Samuel explained before, if we need to get information about habitat, the site is located in Germany, we never say the exactly location of the name of the site. So how long we save the data? So we need to get all the data at least until level 2 and level 3 is going to be done, because we need to building up with this information, and also keep the information to comparing between the site and also between the different years. So until all the labels they are going to be done, we don't know until when we are going to keep the information, because we don't know if we are going to do every year these 3 levels, or between 2 years, 3 years. We need to keep going and running with the working group.
I think also what we can add on that is we don't know how long this working group will exist too. And for now, the questionnaire here are for the purpose of the working group. So the data will exist as long as the working group does work there, and we reach let's say a consensus on how to get the questionnaire done, for example. And there was something about how many times do we need to update it. It depends on how much details you want and what you are looking at in terms of biodiversity. Also, there are some variables that you could look year over year. If you are in, let's say, an active part of the query, which is changing a lot, then you might want to monitor more. If you are in a restored area in the early stage, you might want to go every year. But after the establishment and seeing if the nature goes in the right direction, you might want to do that every 2 or 5 years. So it's at some point it's also up to you to know how to manage your data. I think the early stage you will need to get more information and more into the questionnaire, but later on you might not need to go that more often, or at least all of the questions or all of the information. So the storage of the information will depend also on that part.
Thank you, Samuel. I think we've solved the question from Yvonne. Someone else has any question? Please write them in the chat or the Q&A section as well. I see from the moment there's no more questions. In any case, this webinar is being recorded meanwhile. So in any case, we will just make available the recording of the webinar. If someone or from your organization or from your national associations just missed this event, they will be able to just re-see it again, re-watch it again in any case. But also feel free to reach us either on Aggregates Europe level and myself, or to the Rotate project for any technical question or methodological question that may come up during this first level. And we will keep you updated on any development that we may have. Also, this is an invitation to participate, for example, in the upcoming Aggregates Europe Environment Committee. in this case, we will be able to showcase the first results of this level questionnaire. So to keep you engaged on the conversation and also to also engage you on answering and submitting the second level. So I see there's no further questions. I think we can wrap it up maybe here if there's no more additional comments either by Beatriz or by Samuel.
I'm good.
So perfect then.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you very much for all those present. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Beatriz. And see you on the next occasion. And thank you very much for your participation and for your time.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.